KPM.
Hello everyone, I hope you are all doing well at home. You are now watching Sukses STPM 2021 on DD TV KPM, and my name is Hanif Sean. I am super excited for what we're going to learn today. There's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of, it's a beautiful subject, and definitely we will be learning literature in English for paper 3. And of course, we were wondering who will be teaching us today. We have a special instructor for you. If you want to know more, let's check out her profile. Yes, and we have Dr. Baizura Bahar from the Faculty of Modern Languages and Communications, a senior lecturer there from University Putra, Malaysia. Dr. Aida, you look all excited to be with us today.
I am very much, thank you, Hanif.
Yes, and you did your PhD in comparative literature. Tell us a bit about your findings.
Yes, my PhD was a comparison between Malay and English literary texts, and with regards to literature in English, it's about authors who've actually written and set their work in Malaysia. And they focus on our culture, they focus on our language, and they focus on everything about Malaysians.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. I
Yes.
think that's definitely insightful. It will be very helpful for what we're going to learn today about literature in English paper 3.
Yes.
Shall we start our lesson?
Yes, sure, Hanif, sure.
That's great.
Okay.
So,
Right. So for this session is literature in English 920/3 for novels. And we will begin with the structure of the paper. The paper has 3 sections, and it's section A, section B, and section C. Now, section A has 2 questions in which students or candidates are supposed to choose only one question to answer. And from sections B and C, there are 2 compulsory essays. And each question will carry 25 marks, so the overall marks will be 75. Now, let's go quickly to section A, which is critical appreciation. Like I've stated earlier, 2 questions, one from each novel, and I'm sure all of you will know that the novel is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and the second novel is The Joy-Luck Club by Amy Tan. For this section, there will be 1 excerpt from each novel, and this will be followed by 1 question, and you choose only one. And when you want to answer, you have to focus only on what is in the excerpt. You do not refer to anything which does not appear in the excerpt. For sections B and C, which are the essay questions, now section B will be 1 essay question on Pride and Prejudice, and section C, 1 essay question also on the Joy-Luck Club, and they have to answer both questions. Yeah, Hanif?
right.
So now, how do you study the text? All right, firstly, you must read the novels. There's no way around it. You must understand the plot. You must pick up the main details from each novel. You must understand the themes. You must understand the characters, the symbols, among others. Apart from reading the novels, Hanif, candidates must also read all the other critical books and resources such as articles on both novels in order to help candidates to score an A. Read books and articles about them in order to expand your knowledge. But remember, make your own notes. Okay. Now, during this time, we know some candidates are private candidates, and they would be very, very what we call helped by these internet sources which we found for them. And for Pride and Prejudice, we have the study guide and also the 12 Pride and Prejudice book club questions. And for the Joy-Luck Club, we have also the study guide before Pride and Prejudice was on Schmooped. This one is from Spark Notes, and study guide from Late Charts. Now, a very, very important message to all our candidates and students out there: please do not watch the movies, because both these novels have actually been adapted into movies. Why? Because when you watch the movies, as you know, movie adaptations, sometimes the producers or the script writers have creative license to change the plot, and therefore it will not be the same as the book or the novels. Yeah,
That is true.
yes. So how do you then practice answering the exam questions? Use past exam questions, discussion or essay topics in the study guide. Set your timer to 30 minutes. Write, and you mustn't refer to your notes, okay? And you must compare your own answers to the sample answers provided. For example, how many points did you include in your answer? How many examples from the novel did you use to support your points? And how logical was your answer? Remember, practice makes perfect, yeah? Answering your exam questions, time management, very important. Now, the exam will be 2 hours, therefore, 3 questions, roughly 40 minutes per question, 10 minutes for preparation and 30 minutes for writing. Now, read the questions, underline the important words, think and plan what to write. So, your essay will be introduction, 1 paragraph, followed by the body, meaning the 3 to 5 main points with all the relevant examples from the novel, and a conclusion, which should only be a very short paragraph. A minimum of 3 and a maximum of 5 will guarantee an A for all of our students. Focus again only on what is in the excerpt. Read the passage to understand what is happening in the excerpt, not outside. You must then go back to the question and then this time link it to the excerpt, underline words, phrases and others which you may find significant in relation to the question. Right. What we want to also remind our candidates is that they must not actually put in irrelevant, what we call irrelevant information from the novels, which come before the excerpt and after the excerpt, and they mustn't actually give additional or information which is not required of them, because this will then make them lose marks. You will lose marks when you actually do not refer to the examples from the excerpt, but you refer to outside the excerpt, because sometimes some students are really smart, they know the novels inside out, they tend to do so. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And Dr. Aida, you did mention that it would be great for candidates to also read books and articles about the novels for a more critical understanding of the novels itself. So I guess in terms of their answers, it would also need to be, they would have to have a holistic overview and understanding of how the novel is, and of course the opinions of other critics, I'm guessing.
Yes, you're right, Hanif. What happens is that when they actually refer to all these sources, what we call literature review of the novels and the works, it means that they are also considering what other critics or other previous answers have actually contributed to them understanding the question. So the answer will be much more enriched and will not be too rigid in terms of displaying the candidate's ability to answer the question critically, because the difference between an A student and a C student, or an A result and a C result, is exactly what you just said, when they are able to bring in extra information which may not be what they have been taught at schools or when they have learned themselves. Yes.
Right. Yeah, so I think those are very important points that Dr. Aida have shared with us. Always keep that in mind, and of course understanding the format of questions and which one you will answer. Remember, always have that in mind. And of course, we're going to take a short break right now. If you would like to know more, continue to stay tuned with us on Sukses STPM 2021 on Didik TV KPM.
Didik TV KPM. Didik TV KPM.
And welcome back with us. You are now watching Sukses STPM 2021 on Didik TV KPM. Today we're learning a beautiful subject, which is literature in English. And we have an instructor with us today, which is Dr. Aida Baizura from University Putra Malaysia. Dr. Aida, I believe in this segment we'll be learning and deep diving a bit more in section A. Is that right?
Yes, right, Hanif, yes.
Let's learn a bit more about section A right now.
Okay, thank you. Now, for section A, as I mentioned earlier, is actually on critical appreciation, which is 2 questions. Question number 1 on Pride and Prejudice. For this slot, I've decided to pick a past question from STPM 2019. Yeah, and as we recall earlier, it's actually a critical appreciation from an excerpt from the novel itself by Austen. Now, what I've done here, candidates are 2. First, I have colored in red what we called earlier we say you have to identify certain parts of the excerpt which will help you to answer the question, and then the ones which have been underlined are those in which you can use as your textual evidence from the excerpt to support your points. Yeah, so this one is the first part of the excerpt, this is the second part of the excerpt, and this is a third part of the excerpt. As you can see, what I've done is to underline importance point from the excerpt and to color in red those which will help to answer the question. And what is the question? With close reference to the excerpt above, discuss Jane's reaction to and concern about Elizabeth's breaking news. So, if you have read the novel, you will know the breaking news actually refers to Jane asking about Elizabeth's feelings toward Mr. Darcy, who she has a feeling for. So in your introduction, you have to write about the context of the excerpt. You have to quickly go into saying that for this excerpt, this is when Elizabeth actually confides in Jane that she and Mr. Darcy or Darcy are in love. And Jane, because you're going back to the question of intent, yeah, to discuss Jane's reaction to and concern about Elizabeth's breaking news about her relationship with Darcy, or about her Darcy, we call it, Jane finds it hard to believe that Elizabeth and Darcy could be in love because they think that Elizabeth dislikes Darcy. After we've given the introduction, to set the context of the excerpt, you go to the body, meaning the points of 3 to 5 points as I've stated earlier before. So what exactly are Jane's reaction and concern? So you have to focus only on the character Jane. When you're writing your answer, write by focusing on Jane, who is uncertain whether or not Elizabeth will have a happy life. She is concerned also that the union is devoid of love when she says, and as you can see, this is a direct quotation from the excerpt. Okay, and then the third point, only after she is certain of Elizabeth's feelings for Darcy are mutual that she feels happy for her sister. Also, you can put in your points the use of exclamation marks from the excerpt, such as, "Oh Lizzie, good heaven, can it be so?" which show Jane's worry regarding the improbability of Darcy and Elizabeth being in love. So if we go back to the excerpt here, you need to support your point with textual evidence, meaning examples from the excerpt itself. Okay, like I've given in here. Alright. So, after you've actually done your body, meaning you've actually answered the body part, you then go to the conclusion. Remember, only a short paragraph, okay? So you summarize what you've actually written. Do not bring in other irrelevant information. Just go back to your body and say, Jane's reaction and concern actually changes. She is at first unsure if Elizabeth and Darcy could be in love, but later becomes sure when she hears of Elizabeth's own emotional confession of her feelings towards Darcy. Alright, so you can see that the answer is only contextualized according to the excerpt. It does not refer to anything outside or before the excerpt or anything happening after the excerpt. It is only focused on the excerpt. So remember, again, focus only what is in the excerpt. Do not summarize the plot of the story, because sometimes students tend to do that. They summarize first and then only they refer to the excerpt. understand clearly what the question is asking for. In this sample is Jane's reaction and concern. Use quotes from the excerpt as textual evidence to support your points. Organize your essay clearly and logically. Introduction, body, conclusion, and lead your reader from one point to the next. So, that is question 1 on Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Okay? So, question number 2 of the critical appreciation, which is part of section A, is on the Joy Luck Club. Again, I'm taken from STPM past question 2019. Once again, what I've done is, this is a question, with close reference to the excerpt above. Discuss what the gatherings represent to the narrator and her friends. So, what I did was, I focused on what the question wanted. The gatherings. This is an excerpt on the gatherings and the narrator. There is a narrator and there are her friends. So, going back to the excerpt, I underlined examples which will be used to support my points in red, and then I will then link it to my points to answer my body. Again, we begin with introduction. You have to put a context in your introduction. Go quickly to the question, which is the key term, is the gatherings. The gatherings represent happiness and good fortune for the narrator and her friends. Now, I want to really emphasize on this reminder. Now, for this type of question, you do not name the narrator, but you refer to the phrase the narrator itself in your answer. Now, we all know you students are very smart. You know the novels inside out. You know which excerpt is referring to, which character is referring to. But remember, the question does not require you to refer to the name of the narrator, but only the narrator. You will lose points. You will lose marks, unfortunately, if you refer to the name of the character. So the intent here is to discuss what the gatherings represent to the narrator and her friends. So we move on then to the body of the examples of what the gatherings represent to the narrator and her friends. There are, here I have given 5, between 3 to 5, remember? So the gatherings are held to raise money and their spirits during difficult times. You can see from this part here, raising money and so forth. Okay, and then the narrator and her friends actually find solace and solidarity during these gatherings. The gatherings allow them to count their blessings in still being able to eat and have little luxuries that others do not have. So that particular one is here. As you can see, after filling our stomachs, we would then fill a bowl with money and put it where everyone could see. Then we would sit down at the mahjong table. So here is the other example of when they were collecting money, and we will lead to the next one, in which I've given here examples of mahjong. The gatherings remind them of happier times, because at the gatherings they have good food, they have good games of mahjong, and they tell each other stories that make them laugh. And the gatherings also allow them to think fondly of the past and look forward to the future. If you refer again to the excerpt, the body of my answer has been structured according to the flow of the excerpt. And that is the main thing you have to remember. Answer logically, answer coherently, because the coherence of your answer will lead you to getting more marks, and that is the difference between an A student and a B student. So, how do we conclude? Right. Again, the conclusion must only be referring to the excerpt, nothing before that, nothing after the excerpt. The gatherings enable them to be in touch with their Chinese roots and identity through their food, through the game of mahjong, and the sharing of stories. Conclusion also can include the gatherings also provide the time and space for the narrator and her friends to escape from daily problems. So again, I would like to focus only on what is in the excerpt. Do not summarize the plot of the story. Do not refer to other characters outside of the excerpt. Understand clearly what the question is asking for. Again, please use quotes from the excerpt as textual evidence to support your points. Again, I would like you to remember to organize your essay clearly and logically so that when you are writing, you can lead your reader from one point to the next. Okay?
Right. Dr. Ida, I'm also
Yes?
curious. The excerpts will be provided, and of course they would need to underline those key points for them to answer the questions.
Okay.
Are students allowed to give their personal view on the excerpts?
Well, unfortunately, for this particular section, this is not allowed. What they are required to do is to refer to the question. What is required based on the key term, which is in the case of Pride and Prejudice, is Jane's reaction and concern to Elizabeth's breaking news, and then they have to lift the points from the excerpt itself. They cannot give their view, Elizabeth is unhappy before that, or Elizabeth is now happy because before that she was not sure of Mr. Darcy's feelings towards her. Yeah. So unfortunately for this particular section, students are not allowed to do so.
Right. And another question that I have is, why is it important to also include points or words from the excerpts into the answers?
Now, this is a very good question, Hanif, because it is required in the answer scheme. When students are given an excerpt, like this, and they have to base the answer on the excerpt. So we would like to know which part of the excerpt are they taking the answer from. They can give their points with regards to answering the questions. For example, for the Joy Luck Club is on what the gatherings mean for the narrator and her friends. Therefore, giving textual evidence coherently according to the flow of the excerpt will give them more marks. Will give you more marks, will then differentiate between what is actually your own answer and what is actually evidence from the excerpt. Because sometimes students tend to retell the excerpt. They tend to retell the flow of the excerpt by paraphrasing the excerpt itself. So that is actually not the way to do it. You give your points first and then you support it by giving the textual evidence.
Right, so the textual evidence is very key because that does carry a lot of marks, and I believe it also shows your level of understanding and interpreting the text that has been given to you. And I really appreciate the fact that you said to structure the flow of our answers to follow based on the flow that was given in the excerpts, which is also very important.
Correct.
And you did mention that it is also very important for us to use the correct terms, such as the narrator, the friends, rather than putting our own thoughts about it, despite it being accurate, but it might not fulfill the question.
Yes,
right?
Correct. That is another important and very good reminder, Hanif. The question is actually not a leading one in terms of it's structured to focus only on the excerpt. Like we know, and I said earlier, some students are really good students and they know the novels inside out. But unfortunately, the questions have been set in such a way not really to trick the students, but to see whether they are able to answer the questions. Because sometimes students, they answer what they know. They don't understand the question, but they answer what they know. So what they know is the character's name. They know the name of her friends, the narrator in Joy Luck Club. So therefore, they tend to do so, but please remember, answer the question.
Answer the question, that's very important. And of course, while you deep dive further in section A, we'll be taking a short break here. So if you want to know more, continue to stay tuned with us on STPM, Sukses STPM 2021 on Didik TV KPM.
Didik TV KPM. Didik TV KPM.
And welcome back to Sukses STPM 2021 on Didik TV KPM. Today we're learning literature in English 3 and we're going to deep dive further in section B. I believe this would carry a lot of marks as well. And with me is Dr. Aida Baizura Bahar from University Putra Malaysia, where she's going to be giving us lots of tips and tricks on how we will be scoring A for this paper. Right, Doctor?
Thank you, Hanif. So, for section B, I have chosen the SPM 2019 past paper. It's an essay, question 3, on Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Now, the question here is, with close reference to Pride and Prejudice, discuss how the social status of women is reflective of the historical context during Austen's time. I have to admit that this essay question requires a lot more than just the excerpt as we've given in section A. This is the place where students actually combine their own knowledge about the novel with their extra reading based on other sources, like we have mentioned earlier. Again, the essay requires this structure. The first part, as usual, is the introduction to present the context of the question. What is the question? Outline the historical context during Austen's time, where social status is actually important, paramount in 19th century England, which is the setting of Austen's novel. For this part, students are actually given the freedom to write more, to actually share their knowledge outside the novel, because the intent here is to discuss how the social status of women is reflective of the historical context during Austen's time. The keywords are the social status of women. How does it reflect the historical context during Austen's time? And you know here the mention of the author, namely Austen. Now, all these 3 keywords then should be in your body of the essay. Like I've written here, the social status of women, which reflects the historical context during Austen's time. Number 1, women with no financial status have difficulty getting married. Here, you need to name the characters, the female characters who represent the women and relate it to their social status. In the novel, we have the Bennet sisters, Jane, we have Elizabeth, we have Charlotte. You show some examples of different conditions of finding the right partner and happiness. Okay? For the second answer, at this point in time, during Austen's time, the historical context was such is that women were denied education. They were denied access to business and action. Therefore, their choices in life are more limited. So here is when, as students, you can actually relate what happens outside the novel with the novel itself. And here you focus on the plot of the novel. All right. The third point is women who are independent, who are studious or studious for some people, and talented, were not regarded as feminine. And then you give example of a character from the novel who may not be reflective of the time, but who are actually written in the novel by Austen. And Elizabeth Bennet is seen as not following decorum because she is independent. Apart from Elizabeth, you can also refer to other characters or other sisters of the Bennet sisters. For example, Jane, who went on to find her own partner in marriage without being chosen by her own parents, without him being chosen by her family members, and which she chose to fall in love with her own partner. For the conclusion then, you round it out and then you refer to the introduction and the question again. The social status of women is reflective of the historical context during Austen's time through the characterizations of the Bennet sisters in their quest to find the richest man to be married to. Now, before here, you can also see that we did not miss that. We put that the financial status. Because if you know the novel, it has the most famous first sentence from chapter 1, and I'm sure you know this, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a man who has good fortune is in want of a wife. Therefore, finance part here is then related to the conclusion, meaning they have to find the richest man during the time to sustain their lives, because remember, they do not have access to education, they do not have access to earning their own money, and they are not, unfortunately, independent. So, remember, students and candidates, you must know the novel very well. You must know the plot, you must know the theme, you must know the settings, and you must know the symbols and other literary techniques involved in order to answer this part, section B. You must be able to use the most appropriate examples from the novel to support your points. Alright? And then don't try to spot questions, okay? You cannot say, I'm just going to focus on character studies. I'm just going to focus on the theme. I'm just going to focus on the plot. Please don't do so, because doing so will limit your ability to write really well, to answer the question really well, and score an A. Okay?
All right, Dr. Aida, to answer this question, how would the format or the structure of the answer for our candidates should be?
Thank you, Hanif. That is very important. Now, previously, we have come across some students who actually answer by putting bullets like myself, yeah, in here. But this is actually an essay question. So an essay question must be structured accordingly. It has to have an introduction, 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs at the most. It has to have the body. Like I said earlier, a minimum of 3 questions, a minimum of 3 points or a maximum of 5 points. And in each of your points, you must support it with examples from the novel. The difference between section B and section A, which is critical appreciation, is that critical appreciation requires a direct quotation from the excerpt. But for this section, you do not need to do so. Instead of retelling the plot, you can give examples, meaning scenes from the novel, in order for you to support your point. You do not need to memorize the quotations. You do not need to memorize exactly the phrases or the words in order to support your answers.
Right, and you did mention that in your text it says here you must know the novel very well. I believe, based on the context of this question, which says discuss how the social status of women is reflective of the historical context during Austen's time, that would mean we would need to really understand the characters, we would need to understand the setting, and definitely the plot and all other values, I think, in relation to this novel, to really be able to answer questions in this section.
Yes, I think here is important, yeah, historical context during Austen's time. A good answer will focus firstly on that, in which you will have to say it is set during the 19th century, during the reign of perhaps Queen Victoria, and that era is called the Regency era. But please do not go into talking about men per se, because the focus here, the question's focus is on here, the social status of women, right? We want to focus on the women. And when we say women, we refer to the female characters in the novel. When you write your answer, focus also on the female characters. Name the female characters. For example, Elizabeth. For example, Jane. For example, Charlotte. Therefore, when you do so, the answer scheme will give you more marks. And that is how, from just giving examples or giving your own points and knowledge in answering the question, you get a B. But the minute you give examples from the novels, you give the names, you give the chapters and so forth, you get an A.
Right. Thank you so much for the clarification, Dr. Aida. I think those are very key points that we always need to have when we understand and read novels. And of course, we're going to take a short break. So continue to stay tuned with us on Sukses STPM 2021 on Didik TV, KPM.
Didik TV KPM. Didik TV KPM.
Welcome back to Sukses STPM 2021 on Didik TV KPM, and you are watching us right now because you are an excellent student and you would like to score A for the subject of Literature in English 3 today. And with me is Dr. Aida Baizura Bahar from University Putra Malaysia, who would now deep dive in section C for this paper.
Okay, thank you, Hanif. For section C, essay question number 4 on the Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. Again, I've taken the question from STPM 2019 with close reference to the stories of any two mothers in the Joy Luck Club. Discuss the strengths of each character. Okay, so again we begin the essay with an introduction or the context. First, what you need to do is to identify the stories of any two mothers in the Joy Luck Club. Alright? And after you've identified the two mothers, you discuss the strengths of each character. Because the intent here is to discuss the strength of character of two mothers based on their stories. Okay? So, for this type of question, you must name the two mothers and also the names of the stories in your answer. Okay? If you know the novel well, you will know there are 4 mothers. Alright, so that's why we require only 2. So, for the body of your essay, in order to answer this type of question, you can discuss any 2 of the following mothers. Alright, the first mother is Su Yuan Wu, and then what you do is you retell the story of her story, but in order for you to get higher marks, you need to focus on the strength of her character in the story. Because if you know the novel well, you will know the plot revolves around them and their relationship with their own daughters. You can include the strength of their character with regards to the relationship of their daughters, but do not go beyond the mothers and focus on the daughters, because we do not need stories on the daughters, remember, but on the strength of character of the mother. So if you look at here, her name is Su Yuan, and it says here she was the one who set up the Joy Luck Club, and her daughter Jing Mei was given the task to find stories of her lost babies back in China. Here also you focus on the strength of character in leaving her hometown in Guilin to escape the Japanese, and then she lost her 2 twin babies. So it's more of answering the question with regards to the stories, not to retell the plot, but to focus on the strength of her character. How is she a strong character? Now the second mother is actually An Mei Shu, okay, and here you know that she also migrated to America, but she had a very tragic life before. She was not allowed to meet her mother, who went on to become the 4th wife of a very rich man. An Mei was raised by her grandmother, Popo, and then she, however, learned to respect and love her mother when she saw and she understood the sacrifice that her mother had made for the family. Right? So, although she did not grow up with her mother per se and grew up with Popo, that is her strength of character, because she is able to teach her daughter, who experienced many problems when they actually settled in America. So again, focusing on her strong character or strength of character. The third mother is Lindo Zhong. Lindo here, in her story, she went through an arranged marriage at a very young age before migrating to America. Coming from a poor family and married into a rich family, unfortunately her husband mistreated her. Yeah. So although her husband had no interest in her or in consummating the marriage. As usual, she was blamed for not producing a grandson for the family. The strength of her character, however, comes here. She's able to leave her marriage. She's able to break the marriage bond by playing on her in-laws' superstitions. All right, there is a superstition in which if you do not get to produce a grandson or a son for the family, something bad would happen to you, and she played on that. And Lindo taught her daughter Waverly the art of indivisible strength in order to rise above their own problems. So although it seems that for Lindo there are problems, you can present the problems first, and then you write it in such a way that you focus on her strength of character in overcoming or solving her problems. The fourth mother in which you can choose is Ying Ying Sinclair. Now, Ying Ying, compared to the rest, actually comes from a very rich family in China. However, her strength of character is displayed when she married a bad man who left her to live with another woman. In the novel, she calls herself the Tiger Lady because she was born in the year of the tiger. As we all know, this year is also the year of the tiger. I was myself born in the year of the tiger together with my husband. Yeah. So, as a tiger, and you relate it to her strength of character, the tiger is strong. The animal tiger is strong, it's fierce, it's cunning. So that was actually her strength of character. So when her Chinese husband died, at the hand of his mistress, she then married an American man called Clifford Sinclair, who then brought her to America. So she was not, perhaps she's different from the other mothers because she didn't migrate due to poverty, but because she left a bad marriage and got married to an American. So here, however, her strength of character is that she's able to compromise. She learned to live with lesser than what she was used to when she was back in China, and she tries to pass on her wisdom on Chinese culture to her daughter Lena, whom she believed to be very similar in values to herself. So you can choose any two. So please, again, the question requires you to answer only two. Do not answer three. Do not put in 4, because examiners will only mark 2. Okay, the first 2 as per in your essay. So in conclusion, in the Joy Luck Club, the stories of the mothers tell us of the strengths of each character. You just summarize, do not introduce new information in your conclusion. Remember, like before in section B, you must know the novel well, support with appropriate examples from the novel, and then don't try to spot your questions. Okay, so common mistakes in which most students won't be able to score an A or a B, but maybe get a C. So to get an A for all sections, you must study both texts, right? Know both of them thoroughly. Some students make the mistake of not reading the question carefully. They answer what they know. They do not think, they do not plan before they write the answer. They do not provide evidence or the most appropriate examples from the novel. Their arguments are not logical. It's confusing. The reasoning is off tangent, as we call it. And more importantly, the most common mistake is padding. Include unnecessary information. We do not ask you about the plot, all of a sudden the plot of the story, etc., etc. You then include the theme of the story, etc., etc. No, go straight to answering the question. And bad time management, some students, they do not know the format. They think that they have to answer all 4, but actually they need to answer only 3. So the difference here also, which I need to share with you, is on quotation, paraphrase, and summary. Quotation is required, is a must for you in order to score for section A, which is critical appreciation. Original text word for word with quotation marks. You paraphrase or you summarize for section B and C. You do not need to put in direct quotation. You put a section of a text using your own words. You change the phrase of the original text but you keep the original meaning of the text or the novel. And when you summarize, also you state the main ideas and findings of the novels into your own words by presenting a general overview, normally much more shorter. Remember, this one is for section A, this is section B and C, B and C. Okay? So my final words of advice is, firstly, read the question. Think carefully what the question is actually asking for. Filter the information, meaning don't include information on plot or imagery or theme unless it is directly relevant to the question. Structure your essay logically, introduction leading to the body of the essay, leading to conclusion, and show how your ideas are connected by using linking words and transitions to move from one point to another so that it's a smooth flow of your essay. For example, using firstly or my second point, next I move on, finally. So all the best to our candidates, STPM Literature in English 920/3 2021, and I'd like to end this with a poem. When a task has just begun, never leave it till it's done. Be the labor big or small, do it well or not at all.
There you go. Do it well or not at all. So it's either you sink or you swim.
Correct.
It's very important, right?
Yes.
And of course, Dr. Aida, I think those are very important tips that you have shared with us, especially it's also new and very enlightening to me regarding the quotation, paraphrase, as well as summary. And I believe we really appreciate your final words of advice where you say to really read the question carefully and understand what is required and not go out of context, especially when an excerpt has been given to us. That's key. And of course, definitely it's to really understand the novel. I think that's the core of it. Yes. On top of the other resources that our candidates will read, I think the novel is definitely the main source of information, right? So with that, we'll definitely like to thank Dr. Aida Baizura Bahar, Senior Lecturer from University Putra Malaysia from the Faculty of Modern Languages and Communications. I think what we learned today is especially insightful. It's very enlightening as well on a lot of the different sections. And we hope that you will continue to be always being attentive, always very focused, always, of course, loving books. I think loving books will be very important. I'm a reader as well. I love to read a lot of novels, and I think that's key for us to be able to score well in this paper, Literature in English 3. So thank you for joining us today in Sukses STPM 2021 on Didik TV KPM. I'm sure all of you would like to score in all your papers. So what would you do? Continue to check out our other programs at Didik TV KPM. We hope to see you again, and bye everyone.